I was here a couple of years ago, and this is really one of my favorite poetry communities, so it's good to be back. And as always, it's nice to have my wife Lisa here. We have some family down here, mostly in Ojai, and throughout the area, and I'm really excited because my Aunt Cammie, my Uncle Sherman, and Allington, a cousin, are here who I haven't seen in a little while, so thanks for being here. I'm going to read through some poems in Scar and Flower. It just came out at the beginning of January, and then I'm going to read 3 very short excerpts from a memoir in progress at the end. Scar and Flower I wrote over about 4 years, and I was thinking more intentionally and more deliberately about gun violence specifically, violence in general, suicide, and traumas of that sort. And then the second half of the book deals with some coping and how we navigate some of that grief, or how I do. I was thinking about 2012, Sandy Hook, 2014, Michael Brown, 18 years old, got shot in Ferguson, Missouri. 2016 in Florida, Orlando, the nightclub shooting. So what I'm going to do is just read through some of the first part of the book in succession without a whole lot of glossing, but you'll hopefully get the sense of the first portion of the book. And I'll just say briefly, when in 2012, when Sandy Hook happened, 20 first graders were shot. And my daughter was in first grade at the time, and just the week prior, I was volunteering in her classroom, and I took part in a practice lockdown drill. This is called What I Hear After the Massacre and What I Mistake for My Heart, after Newtown. Invisible birds shocked out of the trees, and you mistake them for children on the playground, or you mistake the leaves cracked underfoot for the children's hush or broken glass. It's a maelstrom. At the winter program, the first graders sing, "Let It Snow," and the parents clasp their hands, half exhale, half prayer. And the children sing in your town, and you think of the children in the shattered town. And all that comes to you is their hearts, heaven, hell, and the next kind word you will say to a boy. The next poem sort of references, in my mind, Michael Brown, and it comes out in some pretty illogical or not traditional grammar patterns, and it just, you writers in the room, you have to go with where it takes you. So this poem is called What I Hear When I Hear You in My Head. It's the little whisper, the aggregate sorrow, the father's heavy weeping as the son's heavy weeping. What I hear is your artistic response after the massacre, the family of clasped hands, black hands, brown hands, a small child whose brother never had a chance, who holds her father's tearful face and says, "Your eyes are like the moon," is what I hear when I hear you in my head this evening. Your laughter like tiny harps. I hear your fatigue as another way to say deprivation. I hear recount, retally. A retaliation is what I hear when I hear you in my head. It's the grace, the charm, the dead, the boy, the dead boy, the boy who died because of the fear, the forest in the other man's heart, the gun. The heartbreak is the sound I hear when I hear you in my head. It's how we each sigh with distinction, where fatigue meets fire, where we wake and wonder if we all go out to a field tonight and sit by a fire, say the most honest thing you've ever said in your life, would any dead boy or girl reappear? Not like a mirage, but reappear. Not like a voice in my head, but a body in this room with flesh and bones, with his big smile and orange blossoms in his billowing hair. I taught in New York City a couple summers ago, and I was on a short walking tour with the student writing fellows at the New York Botanical Garden, and it was about a month after the Orlando shooting. And so we were asked to write a poem about one of the flowers in the garden. Rose. This sudden desire to bloom near the astonishing splendor of the swamp, there you are, unexpected and delivered grace, rose and botany, petal and lure. When the tourists leave, tell me if you get tired. Why are you the queen? In another country, you are not royalty. Tell me, Rose, about root, soil, and wilt. I'm stealing a petal, and I know it's a crime. I want the petal to fly from this botanical garden to Orlando, where I cannot place a rose on any altar, but where I imagine 49 roses near a swamp in a park, where even small children know, don't terrorize the birds. Let no person deliver terror in a park, in a school, in a dance club. No terror in a dance club. I want to be quiet. The roses admit they don't know why they bloom, but they do. The rose, its pulse, doing its loveliness in a time of disaster, dancing like the world was on fire. Thank you. I'll just say this real briefly. I was adopted at around 10 months. I was born in Daejeon, South Korea, which is a couple hours south of Seoul, the capital city. Raised by a wonderful family. I'd only met a couple adoptees growing up, and then when my first book came out in 2007, this whole world opened up. I started meeting hundreds and hundreds of adoptees from around the world. I was invited to speak at conferences and gatherings. Adoption has its challenges like any circumstance, I think. And from time to time, I would get an email or a phone call from somebody asking me to write something for them. And in 2017, there was an adoptee named Philip Clay who, and bear with me, this requires a little bit of a backstory, was adopted to Philadelphia when he was 8. And my age adoptees had to be naturalized. And so the parents had to go through this paperwork process. Now, transnational adoptees are automatically naturalized at the embassy of their country. But it turns out that there are estimates, say, over 35,000 transnational adoptees who were raised here, legally adopted. They've worked, they've driven, but somehow find out they aren't actually naturalized, and some have been deported. It's criminal and repulsive and reprehensible, in my opinion. At any rate, Philip Clay was deported, and in 2017 committed suicide. And I was asked, an adoptee from Sweden wrote me, a Korean adoptee asked me to write a poem for his memorial service. There is legislation going through Congress right now, if it ever gets on the upper half of the agenda, to try to close that loophole that will give retroactive citizenship to all of these people. Anyway, this is the poem I wrote for him. It's called Elegy for Philip Clay, 1974 to 2017. In my dream, when you fell through the sky from 14 stories high, all burning paper, your body broke into 100 flowers and floated into the clouds. The moon and stars, still. Your fire now ash, your spirit free, wild, and true in a deep calm where country is a black night, a blank question of insufficient starlight, where no child, man, or woman, no idea as beautiful as you is ever deported, is ever only the harsh light of your deepest wound. I wish I could have eaten your fire and howled with you. Eclipse, fracture, angelic cloud song. May the wild and broken stars remember you. May you be at peace in a quiet part of the sky. Thank you. So this is sort of a poem, sort of on a similar subject, but sort of about my birth mother or first mother. One of the many ways women are probably stigmatized or given grief is for placing children for adoption. So this was sort of a poem for her and for other adoptees, I guess. It's called How Music Stays in the Body. Your body is a song called Birth or First Mother, a miracle that gave birth to another exquisite song. One song raises 3 boys with a white husband. One song fought an American war overseas. One song leapt from 14 stories high and like a dead bird shattered into the clouds. Most forgot the lyrics to their own bodies or decided to paint abstracts of mountains or moons in the shape of your face. I've been told mothers don't forget the body. I can't remember your face, the shape or story, or how you held me the day I was born, so I wrote 1,000 poems to survive. I want to sing with you in an open field, a simple room, or a quiet bar. I want to hear your opinions about angels. Truth is, angels drink too. Soju spilled on the halo, white wings sticky with gin, as if any mother could forget the music that left her. You should hear how loudly I sing now. I've become a ballad of wild dreams and coping mechanisms. I can breathe now through any fire. I imagine I got this from him or you, my earthly inheritance, your arms, your sigh, your heavy song. I know all the lyrics. I know all the blood. I know why angels howl into the moonlight. Thank you. Okay. I'm going to shift gears slightly. I hope these get progressively, a little lighter. I don't know if lighter is the word, but we're okay? Are we okay? We're cool? All right. I think I could, I have to read this. I'm just going to skip the next one. This is a shorter poem called Stay, and I think it's a poem against suicide. Stay. I am not what you thought an ocean would look like, but once a fire starts in you, there will always be ash. There are long walks, thank goodness. There are woods to be small in. There are anchors to the world, so you will not fly away before it is time. The miracle of grass, even though you may forget it. The fact that you are loved, even though you may forget it. And what a miracle that is, being loved, or more so, that you are a wide blue ocean capable of loving, you churning body of sea life who survived the oil spills, the broken glass, and the dead birds floating in the bay. Okay, that's nice. You don't have to clap. Okay, just a couple more from the book, and then I'll read 3 very short excerpts from something new. I haven't read this one from the book yet. I think it speaks for itself. I guess this enters the second part of the book. How do we, I don't know what does it for you, but any kind of water just relaxes me. Do you know what I mean? You're all living in a beautiful area. So, I'll take a creek, I'll take a river, a puddle, but baths also. So this is called Bathe. Some acts require the whole body's attention. How a light song fills the auditorium. Little bath wave over arm, kite over wine, on your back in a porcelain heart. Tiny flowers near your head, so moist you could almost live there. The city crashing around your hips. The artists remembering the maps to their deep root. All the ache washed out. All the wine slipping down the throat. And this is the last poem in the book. Lisa's probably the biggest reader I know. I think my family are big readers too. My dad is a big reader. My mom is a pretty big reader, and I just grew up around language a lot. She was a big crossword puzzle person and played Scrabble all the time. And we have some books. And one day my daughter, who's now 13, but this poem is when she was younger, she was reading in the house, and I couldn't hear what she was saying, but I heard her kind of making the sounds. I was in another room, and I just got to thinking about her. So this is called The House is Quiet Except. My daughter reads on the couch, whispers the dialogue. I only hear the consonants of her name, the way I imagine a house of books in a future age. 2035, when I will be 65 and alive, I hope, and she will be 31, perhaps with faith and a love she can count on. Wild trees, wild flowers, a man or a woman, perhaps God or someone else to whom she can whisper dialogue if she forgets where her heart is. How there is a pulse in every book. How looking down into the open page reminds us of prayer, the next night of restoration, and the light around her body. So, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so I'm just going to finish with 3 pretty short excerpts. I'm very slowly chipping away at a memoir, and so, thank you. It's a strange new instrument, you do something different, but I'm enjoying it, so I just want to read you a few of these short things. And there are 3 different parts, and I'll try to pause briefly in between each one. An adopted Korean friend of mine once said, being adopted feels like you were never born at all. It makes sense because I don't know the day I was born or the exact place, city, hospital, living room, or field. If I was never born, it might explain why I sometimes feel like more of an idea than a person. What I mean to say is that it took me a long time to feel what some scholars have called being human, to feel, to lose, to dream. My sadness began on the day I was born. I don't say this to be melodramatic, but it's true. Or what might be more true is that I inherited my birth mother and father's sadness, which I imagine is substantial. They probably will die before meeting me, or they died already, or maybe my first father doesn't even know I exist. They must be regularly sad, vacant, or dreaming. What do you call a sadness you embody but don't know you embody? What I've learned about sadness is that it felt like something else when I was living it. Anxiety, fear, even paralysis. These were the manifestations, but it was sadness and loss by its real name. Sadness in the adoptee can look like something else. Good grades, girlfriends, a third beer, world travel. But if I were to describe it in its purest form, mine was like staring into a dark blue or almost black night full of stars I couldn't name. But somehow, I came out the other side with a joy that no person or thing can ever take away. This is what I want to tell you about, how I was lost, how I was found. And then, last, every now and then I remember I was born on the other side of the earth, and it makes sense I love looking at the stars. It's such a childish thing to do, like climbing trees or stomping in puddles or building forts out of blankets. But there's some strange pull and a simple satisfaction from looking at the stars after all these years. I wonder if a man my age in Korea has the same love. I wonder how the stars relate to a gravitational likelihood that I'll tell my daughter someday about the time in our backyard, swimming in the moonlight, and the world seemed perfect. Or the time I dropped her off at her middle school in Fresno one cold winter, and before I drove off, she motioned for me to stop, and she fogged up the window with her breath, and she wrote with her finger, "I love you, Dad," with a heart, and the world seemed perfect. That's what it is about the stars. Because they're so many millions of miles away and so still, the immediate chaos or confusion of our lives seems so minor. Even in the daylight, they're right there, imperceptible, but there. Something like faith or belief, or the wild idea that a deep kind of joy is there for you, even if you have no idea where it is. Thank you. Thank you very much.